We are so excited to introduce our listeners to a new app that just launched. Basecamp Ed is a community building platform for parents to find like-minded families and dedicated teachers in your area. Whether you homeschool your children, are curious about it, or simply want to build extracurricular activities, Basecamp Ed has you covered. Connect with local parents to create co-ops, form groups based on your child's interests, and use the calendar to schedule events with ease. Teachers and coaches can also create profiles and list their credentials for parents to use as a way to supplement subjects and activities. Homeschooling was never meant to be done alone. It takes a village. Build it with Basecamp Ed. Take advantage of this free resource and go download it today. You can also follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Basecamp Ed app for the latest updates.
What we want to do with our kids from the very beginning is to pursue connection and relationship with them, to make that the norm, so much so that it is so appealing that this other thing that tries to come in and steal that away, steal the relationship, steal the connection, that becomes less appealing because they've experienced true relationship, true intimacy, true connection from the time they're born.
From the Florida Parent Educators Association, home of the largest homeschool convention in America, this is the Not by the Book podcast. I'm your host, FPEA Chairman Suzanne Nunn, and together we will hear from guests who share their journey to who and where they are today. Each one of them at some point left the expected path, ripped the page out of the book that says you have to do it like this, and made their own way. I hope these conversations inspire you as much as they do me. In this episode, I get to chat with Greta Eskridge, a second-generation homeschool mom who is determined to live a life filled with reading, adventure, books, writing, books, exciting experiences, and did I mention books? And all of this in an effort to make the most important things top priority, building relationships with her children that would last a lifetime. What she shares today is how to find joy in building a life that is filled with meaningful relationships. Let's listen in.
I was homeschooled from 4th grade on. And before being homeschooled, I went to a small private Christian school and had a wonderful experience there. My mom read us tons of books, so she instilled a love of reading from the very beginning. And we spent a lot of time outside, my younger brother and I.
How did she come to homeschool?
Oh, that's a good question. It's actually because my parents couldn't afford to keep us in that private Christian school anymore. Okay. My dad was a full-time artist and his business was struggling, and they were like, financially, we just can't do it. And my older brother and sister had gone through the public school system in our town, and while it wasn't horrible, they just wanted something different and better for my younger brother and I. We were kind of like the take two. And my mom was listening to Focus on the Family radio show like everybody did in the 80s. And she heard Dr. Raymond Moore, who was a homeschooling pioneer, and he was talking about homeschooling. And she just kind of perked up her ears because she had never heard of it. And when my dad came home, she's like, hey, I heard about this thing called homeschooling. And she told him a little bit about it. And he immediately was like, that's it. That's the answer to our prayers. We're doing it. And she's like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't say that. I just was telling you about it. But they prayed for like a year. And then they took us out of the school that we loved. It was a hard transition, honestly, because we loved being there. That's where all our friends were. We didn't know anybody else that was homeschooled except one family in our town. And they homeschooled us. And that first year was really hard. But then we came to really love it.
That's fantastic. Were you in California then?
Yes. Been in California my whole life.
Okay.
And at that time, homeschooling in California, it was just kind of it wasn't against the law, but it wasn't like talked about. Nobody was doing it. So we just kind of like lived under the radar. I mean, my parents joined Homeschool Legal Defense right away, but we just we wouldn't go out during school hours. it was a lot more like hush hush, and there were a lot of people who didn't understand it, who didn't agree with it, even family members who were really upset with my parents for choosing to homeschool us. And it's so different now to homeschool my kids compared to how it was when I was homeschooled.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Just seeing how it's evolved over the course of, these years. I mean, it is a lot of years, but then also at the same time, it really isn't that many years from that beginning, point to where we are today with homeschooling. But I love to always talk to second gen homeschool parents, because I can't tell you the number of times I've heard the same response about listening to Raymond Moore on Focus on the Family. That is that was a popular show right there. And it actually impacted
a lot of lives.
Yeah, impacted a lot of lives. So, what kind of interest then did you have? So you were homeschooled, artist for a father. What kind of interest did you start having in your days of homeschooling?
Well, reading was my number one interest. I would get through my school as fast as possible so I could go outside and read. And then quickly babysitting also became another passion. And I would, take every babysitting job I could get. I had my first job at the library in 4th grade. I helped to shelve books. So, my love of books ran deep. Yeah. So writing, reading, playing with kids. We were really involved in our church. I did 4-H. I raised rabbits. I like to do all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Lots of adventures. So you went through all the way through high school, I'm assuming, homeschooling. Yeah. Did you have plans to do anything particular when you graduated, or were you just aiming to have a family? What were your goals when you left school?
Well, my number one goal was always, and dream, I would say, I wanted to be a mom, a wife and a mom. And then after that, other dreams were really, I wanted to write, travel, and have a beautiful, adventurous life. And I got married. Well, I went to college. And I didn't go away to college. I lived at home because I did not want to accrue a lot of debt. Right. And so I lived at home and went to a college near where we lived. And that was a little unusual for our homeschooling community. A lot of the girls did not go to college. A lot of them were choosing to stay home and, learn to run a home and learn to take care of their family, which are super valuable. But my mom had grown up. Her dad died when she was 18, and it was just her and her mom. And she did not have the opportunity to go to college or be able to learn how to do things to really take care of her mom. And then she got married young and started having kids right away. So it was important to her that we were able to have some sort of education, whether it was college or something else, but to be able to support ourselves if the need arose. So I went to college. I studied writing and literature. And my goal was to get into the publishing industry. Okay. And then I got married, and my husband he needed to finish school. He's an artist. And I found out that if I started at a job in the publishing industry, I would not make enough money for us to live on so he could go to school. So I decided, I'll be an English teacher, a high school English teacher. So I went to public school for the first time as a high school English teacher at 22 years old. That's amazing. It rocked my world, but it was also so fun. I loved it. And it also solidified that when we had kids, we would homeschool.
Was your husband homeschooled by any chance?
He was not. And he thought homeschoolers were weird.
That would be interesting. Yes. So he was sold on it, though, by the time you had your kids, kind of.
Yes, he was. But he said that it took him a while to be convinced. And it wasn't just me and my amazing, I'm an amazing homeschool grad. It took other things in addition to my story to convince him that, yes, having the kids at home would be best. But he has been so supportive the whole way through. I mean, we have 2 who've graduated and 2 more on the way to graduation. And he's never said, I don't want you to do this, I'm tired of it, or we need to do something else for our kids. He's been so supportive the whole way.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing testament, honestly, to homeschooling families in general. The connections you make with your family and your kids and the relationship makes other things that may not be stellar to you in your mind about how it's going. It kind of trumps all of that, and in the process, your kids get the education they need. But more importantly, you have relationships. And I know that's important to you. And just from the books you've written and the things that I've heard you speak to, that, that connection with your family is really important. And so growing up homeschool, did you find that was something that you had in your own home? Were you all very connected and experiencing closeness in your relationships in your family? And that was something that you wanted?
Yes, for sure. I mean, that was one of my most favorite parts of being homeschooled was the fact that I get to spend so much time with my parents and my younger brother, even though sometimes he drove me crazy. But it was just such a gift to have so much time with them. I mean, I remember one of my core memories as a kid and then even through my teen years was in the morning waking up and then going into my mom's room, and we would both have a cup of tea and read the newspaper together. And like to have the time and the space in a morning to do that with my mom regularly, that's such a gift that busy mornings in traditional school don't allow for. And so just simple things like that really made a lasting impression on me and made me want to have that with my own kids, because I also recognize after being a high school teacher in a traditional school system, I saw like it was hard for me, impossible actually, to meet the needs of all my students. I had 130 kids, that were my students I saw every day. I couldn't meet all their needs. I couldn't know all of their personal learning styles and ways that I could help them where they were struggling. Like that was just beyond my capacity. But as a mom to just a few kids, even though 4 sometimes felt like a lot,
right?
Still I could know them all intimately, as their mom, and know not just them in a relational way, mom and child, but also even to learn what they needed for school, how to help them, grow, where they were struggling, what lit them up inside. All of that stuff was so important to me. And my biggest goal was really to create lasting relationship with all my kids the way my parents were able to do with me. Yeah,
I love that. I really do. And I think that one of the things when I first started looking at your book, Adventuring Together, it's just the title just saying to me, because it was just the heartbeat of, what I wanted with my own kids too, as I was raising them. And I didn't get to homeschool all of my kids, and certainly not all the way through. I had older daughters that I did homeschool for a portion of the time. But the difference just in homeschooling them part of the way, and then homeschooling my 2 youngest kids from the very beginning, the amount of time that was reclaimed and the amount of, adventures and experiences, just everyday things that were so different than with my older kids, even just being able to see the difference there. So super important and super valuable. And so I know you wrote your book in 2020. Is that correct? Like right in the middle of everybody being inside.
Yes, right in the middle of the pandemic. It came out July of 2020. So people were just staying home, and I was like, here's my book about adventuring. Go outside.
And they were really probably chomping at the bit to do it. Like that was probably a perfect time, actually, and all. But when did you start working on that? And like, what prompted you to write your book? I know you were obviously a reader and a writer at heart, but why that book?
Well, I started writing regularly when my youngest daughter was born because I wanted to have like a record of our days. And so I started a blog. Blogging was brand new. And I was like, oh, this is way easier than scrapbooking with 3 children under the age of 4, right? Like
Certainly.
I can't get out scrapbook supplies and tape stuff on a page, but I could type on a computer and put some pictures on there. And so I started writing regularly and I fell in love with it, writing about our life. And so from that, even though my first 2 readers for a long time were my mom and my sister, eventually more people read my blog. And I had a friend who you might know, Sarah McKenzie. She has the Read Aloud Revival podcast, and she's just an incredible friend. And she said to me at one point, this is many years later, so I think like 2018 probably, she says, hey, you want to write a book, right? And I was like, yeah, I do someday. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to connect you with my literary agent and find out if, they could help you with the process of writing a book, because I think you should. Okay. And I felt incredibly honored that she would think that about my writing, but also incredibly scared because I was like, I'm not ready to write a book. And she's like, you'll never be ready. You just have to do it. And so that started the process in 2018 of me connecting with an agent, writing a book proposal. And really, they helped me they looked at all the stuff I had written on my blog for years. At that point, I don't know, it had been like 10 years of writing. And they're like, there's a theme here, this theme of connecting, building relationship, doing it through adventurous things, off screens, outside a lot, not always, because sometimes it's through books and other stuff like that. And they're like, this is a theme that you care about and you write about a lot. And so that's where the idea of adventuring together came from. And I always tell people that adventure is the vehicle, but connection is the goal. So for our family, it looked like adventures outside, camping, hiking, even though like I'm not out there climbing mountains or anything, but I can go hiking with my kids every week, reading books together, learning about art. So experiencing the world in an adventurous way. And that is our vehicle and has been our vehicle for connecting, even through homeschooling. Like that's a part of our homeschooling experiences every week, having an adventure together with our adventure club, our fellow homeschool group. And so that's how the book came to be. And it is something I'm passionate about. And I always have been, because I think relationships matter most. We can get lost focusing on other things. But at the end of the day, the thing we need to focus on most is relationships with our children, with our spouses, with our family, friends, even strangers. We're all craving connection.
Yeah. And so it must have been super popular when it came out in 2020, just because people needed it at that point, the connection to the outdoors, the community, the other people who were like-minded. Was that what you found to be true? Was it a great response?
It actually wasn't very popular when it came out. It was kind of a rough time for that book to come out, because I think people just didn't know what to do. I mean, it's hard to remember exactly how we felt. I mean, your experience in Florida was very different than in California. I mean, in California, people we couldn't even eat in a restaurant, not even outside of a restaurant, like outside on a patio. Like we were so locked down. And so for some people in the country, that was their experience. So this idea of like, oh, I'm going to get this book and learn about connecting with my kids outdoors and going to places, that didn't seem possible to them, or it actually was impossible.
Right.
But what I found is through the years since the book has come out, it has proved to be an evergreen book. And that means like it has stayed popular and resonated with people. And I get messages now from people who tell me like, this book changed the way I parented. I became a less afraid parent less afraid to go out. Because sometimes as parents, especially as moms with lots of little kids, it doesn't have to be a pandemic. We're still afraid to like go out and experience life because it's hard, it's messy, it's a lot of work. We don't know, we can't control it all, and it's easier to stay home. And I just have said, like, you can do this. Like, here is a guide and an encouragement to do this and to connect with your kids in an intentional way. And so I hear from moms who say it's changed my parenting, or it's changed our homeschool journey. It's brought us more joy. And that brings me incredible joy.
Well, it's impacting lives in a way that is long lasting. It's not a fly by night. Those types of changes change people's lives forever, So I think that that's fantastic. And you did follow that book a couple of years later with some activities for people to do with their kids, adventure activities, field trips, and things of that nature, which is always, it's so funny because sometimes when you're an ideas person, it's hard to understand how people don't have some of those thoughts and ideas,
Yes.
going along. And so I would not necessarily always think to write something like that, because I'm like, I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. But then I find these are really popular books, and not that you have every idea, right? But just like, those are not usually the books that I would go for. But I've seen that, especially, it's interesting to me. I feel like in the community of homeschool families that have left public schooling to bring their kids home and homeschool after COVID and after everything that happened during those couple of years, I feel like it's almost more needed, because I feel like those were people that weren't adventuring into this mode because they were adventurous or because that's what they were having. They weren't looking for the experiences. They were responding to something different. And I think that having those tools and having those ideas presented to you just makes it so much easier. And then once you do it, like with anything, once you do it, it comes naturally, right? But getting started and needing to find that space is sometimes hard to just step into it. So I'm sure.
Yeah, I relate to exactly what you said. I feel the same way. Like when I was writing both my first book and my second book, my editors said, you need to put more practical, like it needs to be more practical. We love all your stories, but you need to break it down. Like, give them a packing list. And I was like, that sounds like condescending. Like, don't they know what to pack when they take their kids on a hike? And they're like, no, not everybody does. And that's why they're reading your book. I'm like, oh, okay.
It is funny.
Like you said, an idea person doesn't always recognize that not everybody shares the same ideas,
Yeah.
And so the second book, 100 Days of Adventure, was just such a fun way to share like all kinds of different adventures that kids could have with their parents. And I think my favorite part of writing that book was including things that are kind of like old fashioned that I did when I was a kid, like building stilts out of tin cans, like attaching string to them. And I remember doing that when I was a kid because I read it in the Beverly Cleary books about Ramona. And I loved those books and I loved doing that. And I was like, I want kids today to still know about those cool things that are off screens and just like experiencing the world in a bunch of different ways. So yeah, it was hard though. Like 100, you think 100 things, that's not that hard, but then 100 things can be a lot. I would hit a wall and I'd be like, I don't know what else kids do. What can we do?
That's
I'm
awesome.
Lost.
That's so funny. But yeah, I do think that so much of what you're speaking to in both of those books really is resonating with families. And, and we do see that post-pandemic, the world is starting to consider more outdoor time, more time off screens, and just more intentional time with our families and spending those relationships, time building those relationships with our kids. Those are precious years. But
homeschooling allows for that a lot, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you look at those first two books of yours, I'm going to have to say your third book kind of is very different, right? Only in the, okay, let's be off screens mode maybe, but very different topic. And if you will, will you just kind of talk to me a little bit about the process of getting to this book and writing this book? And it's such an important work. And I know you've had really good reviews for this book, and it's been difficult topics to talk about, but will you just talk a little bit about how you came to that book?
Yeah. My third book feels like a big departure. It's called It's Time to Talk to Your Kids About Porn. And you're like, wait, adventuring, porn, what? Where is this lady going?
Yeah.
But to be honest, that's the first book that I wanted to write. Like, this is the book that's been on my heart for 15 years. Mm-hmm. But my agent and my editor and my husband, who is part of the story, that everyone was like, it's not time yet. Like, it's not time for that book. And so I had to wait. And it is hard to see, like, what could the connection be between those ideas. But the way I always explain it is that pornography is incredibly isolating, and it drives people into isolation, and it creates disconnection and loneliness, and it makes people not able, in some cases, to even pursue relationships with people because they are hiding this deep, dark secret. And so what we want to do with our kids from the very beginning is to pursue connection and relationship with them, to make that the norm, so much so that it is so appealing that this other thing that tries to come in and steal that away, steal the relationship, steal the connection, that becomes less appealing because they've experienced true relationship, true intimacy, true connection from the time they're born. Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, there is a connection between these ideas. But it does still seem jarring to people. Mm-hmm. And when I say that I wanted to write this book first, it's because, the story began 15 years ago when porn impacted my marriage, and my husband confessed to having an addiction to pornography, and it almost destroyed our family and almost destroyed him. And we went through work in healing and restoration. And out of that, I had a very strong desire to want to share our story, to help other families, and especially help parents talk to their kids, equip their kids with better tools than Aaron and I were never given as kids, because our parents didn't come from a generation that knew how to talk about these things. Right. They didn't have tools. So how could they give us tools? So I was like, well, we need to give our kids tools. And then while we're giving our kids tools, let's just give everybody else tools too, the same. But it took time for Aaron to reach a place of healing and to let go of that shame for us to share our story in a public way. And it really wasn't until a couple years ago that he was ready. And then it was like, okay, let's do this. And it was hard, and it's been hard to share our story, but the fruit of it and the ability that we've had to step into other people's lives, not just strangers, even friends who have said, wow, we're so glad that you've shared what you've shared, because one, it's helped us talk to our kids when we didn't know how, but also some of them have even said it's helped us in our marriage too. Or you've given me the courage to share my story. And that's what happens when we're willing to like step into hard places and say, this is something difficult. It's scary to talk about, but we believe that God can bring redemption, and that's what he's doing. And so, yes, it would be more fun to write about adventure only and doing fun trips with my kids and hiking and telling the funny stories from our camping trips that went awry. But that is part of my journey, but this is part of my journey too. And I have to share the story.
And, it's a brave place for you to step into that transparency, and for your husband too. Like you said, it's not an easy decision to be so vulnerable, and, but it does impact so many lives. I'm sure as you were preparing to write your book and researching for that, Just talk a little bit about what kind of statistics are out there about
Mm.
our children and exposure to pornography and what's happening with them.
Mm. Well, the average age of first exposure to pornography, which almost always is accidental, a kid stumbles on it while they're looking up something on a computer, or they're playing a game and a pop-up ad comes up and they click on it, or someone shows them, explicit images or movies. So most of the time it's accidental, but it's usually between the ages of 8 and 11. So that's an important thing for parents to know, that it's happening to kids at really young ages, that they're seeing something that they shouldn't see, that they're not prepared to see, right?
Right.
I mean, no one is prepared, but especially for a child whose brain is still developing, whose, sexual identity and maturity is not formed to be, to see that kind of explicit material is really damaging. It's also important to know that by the time, I can't remember the exact number, but it's in the 90s percentiles. Around the age of 18, over 90% of boys have been exposed to pornography, and now somewhere near 60-ish% of girls. And that's important for parents to know too, for a couple reasons. We need to just understand that most of our kids will have been exposed to pornography in some way before they finish high school, and not just our boys, our girls too, because the pornography industry is predatory and they're going after kids because they want customers. Yeah. And our culture has normalized pornography. It's very common, and it's not like something that is hushed up anymore. It's just like laughed about and considered normal. Some people even promote it as healthy to use pornography. So knowing that kind of information should encourage us as parents to engage with conversations about pornography with our kids. Like I said, to give them tools to make good, safe choices so that they know what to do if they see an explicit image. They know the dangers so they don't look for it themselves. They know, like, this is a dangerous thing. My parents have told me it's not good for me. It's dangerous, just like taking drugs. It's a different kind of drug. It's a drug that impacts my brain, and I need to stay away from it. Like, giving our kids that kind of knowledge and giving them a plan for, like, oh, if I see an explicit image, I know what to do. Like, that's so empowering and helpful, rather than saying nothing and just hoping our kids figure it out.
Yeah.
That has served many of us badly who grew up in an era where nobody said anything about this. Hoping that your kids will just figure it out and know that they shouldn't look at it has not proved to be a good system. We need to offer our kids something better.
And we'll be right back. Florida homeschool families, we see you, and we're here to support your journey. At Bridgeway Academy, we've empowered over 30,000 families with flexible, accredited K-12 programs that meet you where you are. Whether you're just getting started or refining what works, Bridgeway gives you the freedom to choose fully online, self-paced, or a blended program with expert guidance every step of the way. For a limited time, FPEA families can take advantage of an exclusive offer. Enroll for the 2025-26 school year by July 31st and lock in your tuition rate through 2028. That's up to 3.5 years of consistency and support that grows with your child. To learn more, go to info.homeschoolacademy.com/FPEA. Again, that's info.homeschoolacademy.com/FPEA. Bridgeway Academy, empowering Florida homeschool families with choice. And now back to the show. And I think too, you commented that society has normalized it. And I think that some of the things that even, as a kid, I probably never would have seen because it was, R-rated or X-rated or whatever, never would have seen, now has crept into just your average, daily TV shows or ads, like you say, on games, things of that nature, just where we wouldn't have been automatically exposed. I think that one of the hardest things for me as a mom of, my youngest now is 18. So as a mom of my 2 youngest kids is dealing with the reality that more than likely whomever they choose to date or potentially marry might need to have been asked these same questions about their experiences, because you don't know that what you're walking into. And I have friends and families whose homes have been destroyed by pornography and addictions, sexual addictions. And those, they don't even want to consider remarrying because you're going to get into it with somebody else. It's just so prevalent. And so I think that having the tools to talk about it with your kids, but then also like really equipping them to be able to advocate for purity and homes that, they can go into, marriages that they can go into that are not going to be destroyed by this,
Yeah.
So
that's a big part of why I wanted to write the book too, because I just thought, how can we give our kids something better? And even if they are dating someone or marry someone who has a past with pornography, I also know that it doesn't have to be the end of the story.
Yeah.
It does take a lot of work to heal from that for both the person who's using and then the spouse of the person who's been using. Like, there's work for both of us. There's healing work to be done. And if we can avoid that for our kids, help them be better equipped to not even go down that path at all, praise God. But if that isn't their story, whether they themselves use pornography or their future spouse does, that they here know there is hope, and here are the tools for healing through that. Like, both of those things need to be addressed. We can say here are tools to reject it entirely, but then if you haven't, here are the tools to get through it and find healing on the other side of those choices that you made. Like, God is big enough to handle both of those scenarios, so we can trust him with both of those situations.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I believe that the reasons that we're talking about right now, though, too, are the reasons that this book is not just a parenting book or just for parents. Mm-hmm. I really think that, teens, young adults, people who don't have children yet, grandparents, like anybody really that is interacting with kids or people who potentially may be dealing with the destruction of pornography in their lives needs the book and needs the tools. It really is written in such a way that makes it easy to handle. It's a very hard subject, but the way that you have presented it and the way that you've presented how to handle this, how to have conversations, makes it manageable. Something that's not easy to be very manageable. So I think it's amazing that you've been brave enough to share the story and, to put it out there. What kind of response do you feel like you're getting from families regarding the story and the book in general? Because this just came out this year. So
yeah, it just came out a few months ago. It came out in March. I did not know what to expect. I was a little afraid. I was like, is anybody even going to read this book? Are they just going to be totally like freaked out? But I just had to walk in obedience to what God asked me to do. And the response has been really powerful. I have seen God use the book to touch people's lives. So many messages. I always have gotten a lot of messages from parents, especially moms, who say, this happened and I don't know what to do. Will you help me? But now the messages are, this happened and I got your book, or because I read your book, this happened and I knew what to do. Or, somebody told me about your book and now I feel equipped for being able to have these conversations with my kids that I never imagined having. I didn't know how to do it, and now I do. Or what has been new, because we hadn't shared the marriage part of our story. We hadn't shared about our testimony until this book came out is now hearing from women, especially, but also some men who have reached out to asked me, could they reach out to my husband? People who are saying, this has happened in my marriage. I have felt so alone. And now I feel like there's somebody who knows, who understands. I'm less alone. To be able to offer them, companionship in a really lonely journey, and to offer help and hope, because we have like practical resources for them in the marriage aspect of, pornography impacting a marriage.
Right.
Like that has just been such a blessing. And it's such a testimony of how God gives our pain purpose. And, walking through that was so painful, most painful thing I've ever experienced. But God has brought redemption and healing through telling our story, sharing it, and helping others, and being able to be for them what we didn't always have for ourselves. That's been really powerful. So it's been emotional. I cried.
I was going to say, I can imagine it's pretty emotional, because you really have opened up this whole other world to ministering to families and helping families. And unfortunately, it is a world that's got a lot of pain associated with that, and destruction that has come their way. So I can imagine, but I love that you have a heart to connect with people and have a heart to, bring joy to people's lives, because I think that it tells so much about who we are and what God can do when we can still find joy. And people who are looking on may never have had any clue that, this has happened in your life, but you're a testament to the fact that doesn't completely destroy the stories of redemption, that people can see and touch in real life, have the most impact, I think, so I thank you for sharing. I thank you for being willing to share. And I know it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to make that decision always, but it's a brave one. And I just have this whole other thought I had wanted to talk to you about, which
yes, let's do it.
It was a whole other thing. One of the things as I ran through rabbit trails, getting to know you and your spaces online, is your book club. And oh my goodness.
Yes, that's a joy-filled place.
That is a happy place, right? But I was just so enthralled because, number one, the community associated with that group of people in your book club, but also just all of the underlying ways that it just feeds your soul, I think, and I just wondered, could you share a little bit about people, who may be listening, who would want to do a book club, kind of some of the things that you have learned in the years doing it, because yours has been a long-standing book club.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question, because I have two book clubs.
Yeah,
the book
okay.
club that I'm in with moms, or the book club for kids. I mean, there is some overlap, but which one do you want me to talk about?
Well, I love the ones with moms. I love the one with moms.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Okay, so just to give you a frame of reference, I tried to start my first book club when I was in 5th grade.
Okay.
And it was a massive flop because none of my friends wanted to read the book. They just wanted to come over and play. And I was like, we're supposed to talk about the book. So it's been in my heart to have a book club since I was a little girl. And I'm trying to remember exactly. It's been... Okay, my oldest turned 14. He was a baby when we had our first book club. So it's been about 13 years that our book club has been in existence, our mom's book club. And it was started by my friend, Jen Naraki, who sent out this email to a bunch of us friends. And we were all homeschooling moms. And she's like, I want to start this book club. She called it a literary society because she's very fancy. And she's like, I want to start a literary society. And we'll meet 4 times a year. We'll read books that were written before 1974. That was the year she was born. So older books. And she had all these rules. And at first I was like, I don't like rules. I think that's part of the reason why I love homeschooling is because I don't have to follow. I get to make the rules. If there's rules, I make them.
Right.
Otherwise, we're not doing them. So I was first a little turned off by all of her rules. But then I looked at it again and I was like, okay, this is really just like her vision for how to make this really special. I'm going to do it. I'm so glad I did because now 13 years later, we have had, just a lifetime of incredible reads together, but also just connecting. We've built connection, made memories, adventured through reading books together. And so, like I said, we read 4 books a year, which makes it a lot more doable because we're not having to read one every month. As busy moms, that's impossible for some of us. And then we all take turns planning the celebration where we get together to talk about the book. And so that means there are 12 people in the group, and we kept it at that so that it's not too big. We can't be intimate. We also don't have to plan parties that are gigantic. But also what that means is that you're planning with a team of 2 other people, only 1 party a year, and the other 3, you just get to go and have fun.
That's fun.
And it's just been such a great way to experience friendship with some people we only see at book club because our lives, don't connect in other spots. Others we see every week, but this is a special time for us. And in 2019, our friend Jen, who started the book club, passed away from ovarian cancer. And it was so hard, obviously, to say goodbye to Jen. She's one of my best friends. And before she passed away, she said, I want you to keep the book club going. And it seemed like impossible. Like, how could we keep the book club going without her? But she said, I want you to keep the book club going. I'm willing it to you.
Oh, no.
I was like, okay, wow. All right. I guess I have to. And so that first meeting after she passed away was really hard. I remember standing in the grocery store, getting groceries for making cheese curds or cheese something, poutine, I think it was. Okay. And crying, just missing her. And all of us missed her, but it's been so beautiful to continue her idea. And it's just a way to remember her too. Like, she's the reason we are still together. And now, like, when we started, we had babies in playpens at our first, those little portable pack and place, right? Which I don't think anybody uses anymore. That's how old we are. But now, like, there's kids getting married and having their own babies. And so we've gone from, little babies to those little babies growing up. And now we're moms that are becoming grandmas and mother-in-laws. And
that's crazy.
It's just been a remarkable, beautiful journey.
Yeah, I think one of the first, I don't even remember how I came across it, except I remember seeing a Frankenstein party post, I think. Yes. And then that just pulled me in deeper to see what all I could find out about it. But I think it's funny that, that the way that you have that structured, that she structured that, really just, it is more than just meeting the need of reading and talking about a book. But it really is a community, and we're wired for that. And just to hear the stories about the length of time that you've been together, seeing families grow up and becoming, extended families and all of that. Has anybody else really picked up this method or model that you all have and started doing book clubs that you're aware of, or do you just put it out there and if people do it, they do it?
Yeah, we've definitely had people tell us that they've started their own book club, and people will send me pictures and share, we've been doing this too. And then a lot of people do it with their kids as well. And they kind of use the same model. Like, we read 4 books a year. It makes it doable. And I think, like what you said, that idea of like intentionally coming together, not just to read books and talk about them, which is super important and valuable. And I think it makes books come alive in a different way when we join together to talk about them. But also it's being intentional about like saying, we're going to create a beautiful meal or experience. We're going to make this beautiful because God makes the world beautiful. God created beauty. And when we bring it into our lives, intentionally cultivating it, it's a way to just honor what he gave us, that desire for it. And interestingly enough, that Frankenstein book club party, that was the night that my husband and I were in the thick of the book, this past book that we just did. We were in the middle of getting ready to release it into the world. And it was a hard time for us in our marriage. I think we were both struggling with like putting our story out there, and we were under a lot of stress and anxiety, just getting ready for that. And it was book club night, and I didn't want to go because I was just like, I'm not in the mood for celebrating anything. I'm frustrated. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. And Aaron was like, you should go. You need it. And I did, and it was balm to my soul. And so I think even being willing to say when times are hard, when your best friend just died from cancer and she said, have the book club still, when you're going through a hard time in your marriage, when you're struggling with a wayward child, like we still need to gather and celebrate and pursue beauty because that feeds our soul. And it's a way for us to connect with other people, and it's a way for us to connect with God.
Yeah. I love that. And I just love the impact that community and just coming together for things. Well, you were at our convention, beautiful things. So coming together and just sharing beautiful things, and the beauty and the small moments and the relationships and those things have a huge impact. And like you said, I think balm to the soul. And, in the society and the culture that we live in today, that's so fast paced, so harsh in so many ways, and to still find the beauty and to still focus on those things is so important. And if we can equip others and encourage others along the way to do it. I'm like you, I've tried to start book clubs for many, many years, and it never seems to be the thing. I was like, nobody else gets this. Nobody else understands. But it was funny because after stumbling across your book club, and like I said, literally, it was just like, that's crazy. I shared with a friend of mine, this is really cool. And I was like, I don't even know if anybody else is interested. But so we started coming together and sharing books together now. And maybe we'll grow. Maybe we'll pull some other people along. But, it's interesting to see how just those times can just really be such a refresher. I mean, really. And it doesn't have to be every month. It just is, in the paces of our life and the seasons of our life, it can be different. But I have loved that. And I've loved looking at that. And I think that it just helps me understand a little bit more about who you are, and it didn't surprise me at all when you said you loved to read and your first job was in a library. Not at all. So
yeah, little Greta. When I was little, my dream was to live next door to the library. There was a house right next door to the library in our town. And I was like, if I could live in that house, I would be the happiest person in the world.
Sounds so fantastic. Yes, but it's true. I know. And I spent many, many days and hours in books. That was I loved it. It was where I wanted to be. And still, I thoroughly enjoy it. So, but, I love that we've had a chance to talk and just the things you shared. And thank you for sharing. I always like to kind of follow up with at the end, if there's a word of encouragement, either through quote or scripture or just something that resonates with you that would encourage other people, in their journey just to come to these places where, they can experience connection and adventure with their kids or facing hard things with their kids. What would you share?
Gosh, there's a few things that come to mind, but I think what it all boils down to is that people matter most. And what I mean by that is that there are a lot of things being thrown at us that feel like the most important. And that could be, busy schedules for sports or activities or things that pull us away in bad directions, like, pornography. There's a lot of things that want to pull us away from relationship and connection to one another. And even things that are good, like, wow, like we really need to, focus on academics this school year and make sure that we finish all the books and that you finally learn your multiplication tables and all of those things.
Right.
Those things aren't bad, but if your focus is on getting the stuff checked off your list or making sure that you are feeling good and but you're not really connecting with the people in your family and your friends in your life, then you're missing the most important thing. And so I would just encourage people to just remember people matter most. Your relationships with one another are the things that stand the test of time, or they should. And that takes intentional work. And we should put the work into those areas of our lives. And that should be our focus. And for me, homeschooling has been an incredible way to do that. And then it's allowed time for that. And that has been such a gift. Yeah. So people matter most, pursue relationships, and don't forget to make that your priority, even more than a clean house and your checked off list and timescales.
That's awesome. But true. And I appreciate that so much. It's been really good to talk to you and just to share some of your story today. And I look forward to getting together again, hopefully in the near future, so that we can learn more about you and just your story. I hope that your book is a phenomenal success this year. I think it's an important one. And you are Ma and Pa Modern on social media.
I actually just changed my Instagram handle after
years,
12 years. It's just Greta Eskridge now. When I started Instagram, I didn't know what I was doing, and I made up this silly name. But finally, I was like, "That's too hard. People can't figure it out." So it's just Greta Eskridge. I'm easy to find now on Instagram.
That's good. I'll have to make note. So Greta Eskridge, and I know that anybody that finds you and your books will just be blessed. So I encourage everybody to look you up. And
thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Not by the Book podcast from the Florida Parent Educators Association. To learn more about homeschooling in Florida or to find resources to help you on this amazing journey, visit our website at FPEA.com. If you have any suggestions for future guests, contact me, Suzanne, at notbythebook@fpea.com. Thanks again for listening, and be inspired to live your life not by the book.